This is the Fifth Estate Winning Headlines, your media police post. In this segment, we summarize some of the headlines that you may have missed this morning, but we also take a look at the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. Today is the 22nd of January 2021, and I am 2J.
I'm Tuam.
And I am GK. In case you missed the headlines, here they are. In the Daily Nation, new plot to tame Ruto. In the Standard, sense of urgency hits Raila camp. And in the Star, BBI, Uhuru's plan to win over Mount Kenya. Yes. Let us begin with this new plot. Is it a new plot?
It's not a new plot as such, and I do not know why they're trying to tame him. But before I analyze it, let me describe it.
Yes.
So it just happened yesterday that a letter from Jubilee Party threatened disciplinary action on Deputy President William Ruto for associating himself with the Ufukara Democratic Alliance.
Ufu what?
Ufukara. Is it called the UDA party? Something like that?
I actually have no idea what they're called.
Yeah, Ufukara is Poverty Democratic Alliance. That's what it means. Now, this should not be, and probably shouldn't be a laughing matter, because you have a deputy president who is allied to a party that is fronting candidates in by-elections and competing with the party that he belongs to, a party that he is deputy party leader to. You see, and this is what I've been saying, he is running parallel programs and parallel campaigns against the party that sponsored him to become deputy president. The only reasonable thing for him to do is to resign, all right? And I do not know why he's being treated with kids' gloves. I think an impeachment motion should be drawn to remove William Ruto as deputy president if he fails to resign. Right?
Yeah, true.
He is not going to change. He has already shown
us.
He has drawn the line in the sand, and he's openly talking against his boss. He's going against his boss's programs. So the best thing for him to do is resign. And if he doesn't resign, he should be impeached.
Yeah, well, honestly, it does amount to gross insubordination.
Absolutely.
And I do agree with you. I think that's something that needs to be interrogated.
Yes.
Why is he being treated with kids' gloves, as you said?
Yeah.
I think there's something there that a lot of us we're not reading between the lines.
Yes.
And I think it goes back to,
yes,
this broken promise. What happened?
Yeah.
I don't think you break up with somebody for no reason.
He's a deputy president who's not going to work. Well, if he's not going to work, then you fire him.
Well, they say this: the most effective warfare an enemy can launch on his foes is confounding, confusing them, watching them tear themselves to pieces. I don't know who this applies to, but
fire him.
Okay. But if he's destroying Jubilee from within, maybe that's the war that he was launching, and maybe this was his intended goal. Well, guys, we have a 3-part criteria we will use to break down the headlines. We will ask ourselves, is it topical or speculative? Is it repetitive or groundbreaking? And is it thoughtful or just plain lazy? I like it. I feel like we should change it a little bit.
Yes.
Is it to tame or to oust Ruto?
I think it is to oust, exactly.
Oust Ruto.
There we go. We're editing the Daily Nation, and we will park it.
Yes.
In the Standard, the sense of urgency hits Raila camp. And here, basically, we're being told there's an 18-month dash, and the clock is ticking towards the next year, the next election. And so the story is basically about how ODM is putting its house in order. It also says how the Central Management Committee met, and they agreed that their opponents have already hit the ground running. They are lagging behind, and so they have to prepare themselves for the 2022 race.
Yes.
Now, by opponent, I'm assuming they're speaking about the deputy president, and they're talking about the Hustler Nation narrative.
Yes.
My thing is, and I will talk a bit about momentum.
Yes.
Staying power and momentum for such narratives is critical. There's a timing issue here.
Yeah, that is true.
We've seen the Hustler narrative sort of flip on its head in the last few weeks.
Yes.
Where people are starting to poke holes.
Yes.
People are starting to see how the narrative, doesn't make sense or is, having worrying effects on society.
Yes.
And so I think it's been hijacked to some extent in that the Hustler movement is sort of becoming this destabilizing force for society where, it's causing insecurity and some form of fear and othering of others in society.
Yes.
And so I would say to ODM, timing is everything. Momentum is easy to lose and almost impossible to fake. So for as long as you stand for something, it should last the entire
Yes.
18 months or however long they have.
Yes.
And I think also the thing that they should be encouraged to do is get Kenyans to set their sights on greater goals.
Yes.
So the hustler narrative, will it reinvent itself beyond the wheelbarrow?
Absolutely
now
not.
that it has 18 months to
That's
go.
it.
Absolutely not. This is something that was created by people who have a PhD in plant science.
In botanical something.
Yes, and there's a difference between tactics and there's a difference between strategy. Now, if you are to come out 2-3 years before a general election and you say you're going to have this hustler movement, and mind you, by the way, all formations that have taken power in this country, apart from KANU, have been formed a year to 6 months just before a general election.
Because that's wise.
And that's wise. And that's why you sit down and say, for how long, what's the staying power of this hustler thing?
Yeah.
It's not going to stay for too long.
And I think the article also had a call to action. It said in its in one of the sentences, there were concerns by Badi over the apparent lack of political machinery to popularize the proposed changes for BBI. And I think this is a call to action for those who are supporting Uhuru Kenyatta and BBI.
Yeah.
Step up, say something. The time
To do so is now. Most definitely.
Is it a sense of urgency? Yeah.
I don't think so.
Yeah, so we can toss the
it.
Standard.
Yes.
Let's move to the Star really quickly.
BBI, Uhuru's plan to win over Mount Kenya. I think one of the first statistics that they give is that only 36% of his supporters say that they would vote yes for the BBI, and that is contrasted with 66% that they surveyed of ODM supporters who said that they would support BBI. I think we're seeing that the president does need to go back and reclaim his base.
Yes.
They talk about how he's making an effort to stop that anti-BBI wave in its tracks. They met with some CSs at the infamous Lamada Hotel. DK will give us her thoughts on that.
Yeah.
In order to firm up that plan. They also quote our very own Professor Mutahinguni, who said on Twitter a few weeks ago that the Kikuyu will not see the presidency for the next 30 years.
Yes.
Kikuyus will be out of power. The future of government must be decided in the next 365 days. So I think the president is on this charm offensive. The article then goes on to talk about the different projects and plans that he's going to unveil to articulate the government's plans and interventions to spur the economy. I think it's all good and well for you to go and make promises to your base. I think that's quite a normal thing to do. And I think it would be unwise to do otherwise.
Big question is, did you expect the president to go and tell the Star that this is exactly what he's going to go and do to reclaim BBI and Gema?
Of course.
This sounds like a leak from Lamada Hotel. They should stop going there.
Exactly, there's a problem.
I mean, some of the stuff these Star people write anyway.
Yeah, I know. In fact, as I read the article, I did find myself getting confused at times. They start on this one, chain of thought, and then they move on to another one, and then it was just. The editor, he knows who he is. I think he needs to get a grip on what real journalism is.
Can we toss the Star
Almost
on
definitely.
that account? There we go. That leaves us with our edited Daily Nation headline.
So we win.
We win. Onto the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country, where we also have a three-part criteria. We ask ourselves, is it humorous or dry? Is it satirical or pessimistic? And is it effective or just plain lazy? Today we have all three. Let's begin with Iga.
Iga, all are rubbish cartoon. There you have, it depicts several hands entering the presidential candidates into a ballot. However, inside the ballot is even an even smaller orange ballot that is locked and labeled presidential flag bearer. They're making fun of Ryder.
Yeah, I think they are.
Yeah, the orange, and I think the context of this is ODM's announcement that it began the process of identifying his flag bearer.
I mean, it's his party. So
his party. And that's
he
what
can do what he wants.
That's what I was telling you guys yesterday. If you own a party, you will say who will be the flag bearer of that party.
Yeah.
Plain and simple.
Yeah. However, I think just a generally lazy.
It's a rubbish cartoon.
So in the Standard, what do we have?
A caricature of Bobby Wine, muscular Bobby Wine.
He's like a genie.
Yeah, he's been caricatured as a genie. What's he coming out of? Is it a ballot box?
Yeah, it's a ballot box.
Ballot box, and right next to him is a general himself, President Museveni. And he's looking at him bewildered there. And I mean, what is the purpose of this cartoon?
I think the idea is that just...
Because if Bobby Wine is a genie, is he going to give Museveni some wishes?
Because the idea of the genie is that, how the story is told is that you rub the lamp and then the genie will come out and grant you a wish.
The 3 wishes,
Okay.
So if the ballot box is meant to represent the lamp, and Bobby Wine is the genie
Yes.
who will grant wishes to
Okay, I
M7.
I see it.
I don't know, Gado, I think it's a bit too convoluted.
It's a bit
Can we
convoluted.
toss it on
Bit
that?
much,
Yeah,
yes.
we know it. Ah, the star. I love this one.
The star, you have a caricature of Raila Odinga. And there's a man there in orange sleeves that is telling him surprise. And on the other side is a caricature of Musalia Mudavadi, Kalonzo Musyoka, and Moses Wetangula. And because Baba's been blindfolded, caption there is, "We will reveal our candidates soon." Only for him to open his eyes and see that the candidates are the people he's always run with. Not a bad cartoon.
Or that he is the candidate
He is the
himself.
candidate.
He's
That's
the candidate,
idea,
yes.
That ODM in the orange suit is pretending that they don't know who it is.
Yeah.
I love it. Can we give it to the
But
star?
yeah, it's quite funny.
There we go. The star gives us our winning country. And now for our final thought. But before we get there, please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit like.
Now, our final thought, it is inspired by a book entitled When? The Scientific Secrets of Perfect Timing by Daniel Pink. What a name, eh?
Why did you pause like that?
I don't know. It just reminded me of Zuma, you know. When you say, what does he say? I've forgotten.
In the beginning.
In the beginning.
Beginning.
In the beginning.
Before we get there, can I give a summary of the week?
Yeah,
Please
go
do.
ahead.
So this week, we decided to start the year the right way with some motivational final thoughts, things to help structure your life. On Tuesday, we looked at the book The Social Animal, The Hidden Sources of Love, Character and Achievement by David Brooks, one of my favorites. And in the book, the author discusses the unconscious mind. And it is in the unconscious mind that he says the brain gets most of its work done. He emphasizes that what matters in people's lives today is how we relate to one another, which comes from this unconscious mind. On Wednesday, we explored the Checklist Manifesto, How to Get Things Right by Atul Gawande. In this book, the author makes a case that checklists can help us manage the extreme complexity of the modern world. The Checklist Manifesto is the author's borderline evangelical argument for the use of checklists to do basically everything. For the author, failure is not the result of ignorance, but rather the result of ineptitude. That is, an improper application of what we already know works. And yesterday, Thursday, we looked at the book Why We Sleep, The New Science of Sleep and Dreams by Matthew Walker. In this book, the author explains how neglecting sleep undercuts our creativity, problem solving, decision making, and so many other things. He calls the sleep loss epidemic as the greatest public health crisis in the 21st century. He debunks the myth that you can catch up on sleep and questions the culture where people look at those that like to sleep a lot as wimps and praise those who can function on a few hours of sleep. And today, we're looking at when.
When?
When?
The scientific secrets.
When I am participating.
Oh boy. How many hours of sleep did you get last night, Tuam?
Like 4.
Oh boy.
No wonder.
There we go.
Yeah.
So I think that we've all experienced firsthand how frustrating it is for somebody to come and speak to you energetically in the morning when you're not quite ready, or to come and have a very deep conversation when you're trying to wind down at the end of the night. And so Pink's principal theme in this book is about chronobiology. That is the science of how the body's biological clocks can influence our cognitive abilities, our moods, and our attentiveness. So he says in the book that most people get their best work done in the mornings. Then you suffer a trough of mental weariness in the afternoon, and then you experience this late evening burst of energy again. And he says how you feel at certain times of the day is called your chronotype. And he says that there are 3 major ones. The first is the lark. These are people who love to get up early in the morning. They have all their emotional highs and lows before most of us have even opened an eye. The second is the owl. And those are people who don't like to wake up early and really, find themselves focusing and getting concentrated late at night. And then the last is called the third bird. And he says this is a majority of people who are neither late or early, but they just follow a standard pattern of, waking up at a normal time, working, going to bed at a normal time. And so he talks about this, kind of flow that we have during the day. So he says that if you are a lark, your normal system is you have a peak moment. So you wake up in the morning and you get to work and you're excited. Then you have this trough moment where you kind of, dip, then you go back into a recovery moment. And he says that the key is to schedule the right type of work during each of these times. You don't just do it randomly. So he says our cognitive abilities change throughout the day. You should do your analytical work in the morning during the peak, do your administrative work during the trough, and your creative work during the recovery. But this actually follows if you're a lark, a morning person. However, I think I can say this, most of us on this panel, if not all of us, are owls, right? I like to wake up late and I like to do all of my work in the evening. So we would do everything backwards. We would do our analytic work at night, exactly. So you just flip it. But then it got me thinking about, living up in a pandemic, living during lockdown. And these restrictions during the pandemic have altered our everyday life in so many ways. Our daily habits even. The times we go to sleep, how we commute, how we work, how we engage with people, everything has changed. And all of these have affected our well-being and our psychology. And more importantly, how we are fighting viral infections. I think if you're not sleeping as much, your immunity gets weakened. And so when they did studies to look at the effect of lockdown, a lot of it was inconsistent. One study found, for example, a positive impact on sleep quality because of, quarantine. Whereas others found an adverse, opposite on that kind of change. So I think the most important thing is figure out how to do lockdown in a way that works for you. Just make sure you're taking care of yourself. And considering that we're in January, I think it's a good time to start, making those plans.
And rediscovering those new patterns.
Exactly.
I love it. I love the part on the power of restorative breaks. Now, in Denmark, they discovered that there is a correlation with great academic performance and the time of day which an examination test is taken. Now, research shows that students tend to perform better when exams were scheduled in the morning than in the afternoon. But another ingredient of good academic performance is restorative breaks. And here is why. When the Danish students had 20 to 30-minute breaks to eat, play, chat before a test, their scores did not decline. In fact, they increased. Now, research shows a break causes an improvement that is larger than the early deterioration. That is, scores go down after noon, but scores go up by a higher amount after breaks. Taking a test in the afternoon without a break produces scores that are equivalent to spending less time in school each year and having parents with lower incomes and less education. But taking the same test after 20 to 30-minute break or breaks leads to scores that are equivalent to students spending 3 additional weeks in the classroom and having somewhat wealthier and better educated parents. And the benefits were the greatest, and the benefits of this is that the greatest were greatest for the lowest performing students. Now, what is the point here? I don't think this just applies to school-going kids. It applies to everybody, all of us. Just like we said yesterday, staying awake for long hours without a siesta or a break is likely to diminish your learning abilities and also impact on your productivity. Get used to restorative breaks.
I love that you're advocating for naps.
Any day, anytime.
Is that your platform now?
I told you, but please don't talk.
Naps and impeaching Ruto.
At least you're consistent.
So I really liked what you're saying, Tuam. And part of the book describes actually some research that was done. So for teenagers, it was found beginning the school day before 8:30 in the morning can impair their health and actually hobble their grades, which then limits their options and trajectories for the rest of their lives. And so he makes a case for the power of these beginnings, how you start. Starting right, starting again, and starting together is the name of the book. 3 principles for successful beginnings. And so he gives an example of how in his French class, years ago, he would go and, the class was around 7:55 a.m. He says he's not very good at French and he thinks he has the reason why. He says that the first question his mademoiselle would ask is, comment allez-vous? How are you guys doing? And every answer, all students will say, je suis fatigué. They'd say they're tired. And he says that it wasn't teenagers like refusing to use their brains. They were all just really their brains hadn't activated. And there's a scientific reason. So apparently young people begin undergoing their most profound change in chronobiology of their lifetimes around puberty. So they fall asleep later in the evening and left to their own biological imperatives, they wake up later in the morning. So their period of peak owliness
Yeah.
stretches into their early 20s. Imagine that.
Yeah.
Yet you find that most secondary schools are trying to force extreme owls
Yeah.
into these lark personalities, these chirpy, morning people.
Yeah.
And so the result is that teenage students sacrifice sleep and then they suffer the consequences.
Yeah.
Some of the side effects are depression, suicide, substance abuse, and even car crashes.
Oh, yeah.
So early start times have correlated strongly with worse grades, which is what you were saying,
Yeah,
Jan,
yes.
and lower test scores,
Yes.
especially in math and language.
Yeah.
And I think this should be a key lesson for Kenyan schools.
Yes.
Yes.
Getting, really young kids getting up so early.
Yeah,
For what?
Yeah.
Anyway, so one of the things I really liked about this chapter was the part on starting again.
Yeah.
Most of us probably made New Year's resolutions on January 1st. And he says that the date you choose to motivate yourself reveals a dimension of the power of beginnings. So what he calls New Year's Day, that first day of the year, is a temporal landmark. Now, a temporal landmark is something that you use to navigate time. Now, think about the landmarks that you use to navigate space. So if you're giving someone directions, you say, turn past the shell. The shell and the New Year's date are landmarks.
Yeah.
Now, this temporal landmark is a landmark of time. And so he says that this stands out from other dates because it helps you sort of hit a reset button. So there's research that says that on the first day of January, the word diet in Google always soars. And this is because people, you want to do better on the first day of year. It's that this sort of transition.
Yeah.
But there's also another type of landmark. There's the social and the personal. And the personal landmarks are things like your birthdays, anniversaries, and job changes. And on those dates, you get to hit the reset button again.
Yeah.
So you'll find like on your birthday, you'll choose to go to the gym again, or you'll choose to do other things. But basically he says it's a way to open a new mental account in the same way that a business would close its books at the end of one fiscal year into a new ledger for the new year. And so I think the book was encouraging because it gets you to, see a new beginning. You can fail. You can feel disconnected from your past, but you can feel that you can start a new year and a new you at any point. So don't be restricted to the 1st of January. You can start it at any point. Hit
On a
reset.
Monday.
Even on a Monday, even on your birthday, whatever it is, hit reset. And I think that will help you towards achieving some of the goals you've set for yourself. So on a day where we had a winning headline edited by us for the Daily Nation and a winning cartoon by The Star, I want to leave you with this. Embrace the fresh start effect. Individuals who get off to a stumbling start can alter their course by using this temporal landmark to start again. People can strategically create turning points in their personal histories. So New Year's Day has long held a special power over our behavior, but we turn the page on the calendar and you glimpse all those empty squares in your calendar, but open a new account for your book. Let new memories come, new experiences, and start right, start again, start together as often as you need to. Have a lovely weekend. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Find us on TV, on GoTV, Pankita,